Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is U.S. Immigration Attorney Hardam Tripathi from Trip Law. Today we're going to discuss a very important case that we just recently had where we had an individual who was applying for citizenship through the marriage of a U.S. citizen, and they ultimately lost in their interview, but then we were able to file an appeal and win. So this video is really for those of you who may have gone to your naturalization interview and may not have succeeded and got a denial notice by USCIS. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to really break down the actual case, what happened with respect to physical presence and continuous residency requirements, and how our firm was able to assist and win for our client. But if this is your first time listening in, please go ahead and click that subscribe button, go ahead and click the like button so we can continue to make really great videos such as these to educate the public on all things immigration law and policy. All right, so let's jump right in. So ultimately, we had a client who had gone to a naturalization interview, and through no fault of their own, actually what had happened was that the government ultimately used the wrong law when ultimately looking at this person's case. And we were able to file an appeal and ultimately win the case due to facts that were not in evidence, and ultimately provide a rationale and ultimately showed to the government why this case should have been a case where that individual should have gotten their citizenship. So today what we're going to do is, this is a video, like I said, for those of y'all who are listening in who may have failed your interview and want to figure out how can you either A, appeal and win, or B, how do you refile and make sure that you do a better job next time with counsel. So if you're interested, give us a call. If you failed your interview, give us a call here at Trip Law. Our number here is 863-370-2427, and our email address is info@trip-law.com. That's info@trip, the hyphen sign, law.com. So let's jump right in. So ultimately, there's a couple rules when you're applying with a green card to get your citizenship. There's two specific segments of the law that are very important, especially for those of y'all who may be listening in who do a lot of traveling back to your home country as green card holders and want to come back to the States and then apply for citizenship in the near future. This is a very important video for you because ultimately what you have to realize is there's two things in the law. There's something called continuous residence and also physical presence. Continuous residence is a very unique area of naturalization law as it applies to your case, because what it requires is that those applicants who are those immigrants with green cards that are trying to get that citizenship, they have to have resided in the United States for 5 years before they actually apply for the actual citizenship, citizenship process. Now, the nuance of that is it's 3 years if you applied by you marrying a U.S. citizen spouse, okay? So very important distinction there that you should probably know going into this. Another thing is that you maintain residence, right, within the United States for that required amount of time, maybe the 5 years or 3 years, 5 years if you're self-petitioning, meaning you're doing it by yourself, or 3 years if you're doing it through a U.S. citizen spouse, and that's how you got the green card. But also there may be like extended stays, right? You may have been in the country longer, outside of the country longer than you intended to. Those are extended absences that the government will use against you in that interview. So you have to make sure that the days to the day are allocated for continuous residence purposes, which is why it's very important to hire a lawyer and give Trip Law a call so we can make sure we get this taken care of for you. Usually absences that happen to be about 6 months but less than 1 year could disrupt your actual application. The burden of proof is on us as your lawyer and you as the individual applying to show why that occurred and what kind of circumstance did occur. If there was an emergency or exigent circumstance, you kind of want to show evidence of that to the officer at USCIS. Another thing though is if you have an absence out of this country, if you haven't been in the U.S., let's say you go back to your home country and you stay there for a year or a year and a day or more, then you actually have shown that you've disrupted your continuous residence and you've basically given up your green card. So these are very stringent requirements as it comes to you applying for citizenship, but also as you have your green card. I have so many clients who give me a call whose green cards are about to expire while they're trying to apply for citizenship. And what we do is we not only do the I-90 renewal and extension of that, but we also help with the N-400 application along with going to the interview and making sure that your needs are met from an immigration perspective. So very important. So now that we've talked about continuous residence, let's kind of go into physical presence. This is actually something that a lot of my clients go through, and the reason I'm kind of sharing all this is so you understand the law and the policy. You know, this is more informational purposes, not legal advice. But you know, when you come to our office, we'll kind of give you good counsel and explain why this is so important to your case. But ultimately what ends up happening is with physical presence, that's a second requirement of sorts when you're applying for your citizenship. What this means is that you as the applicant are supposed to show to the U.S. government and USCIS and that officer, he or she who will be interviewing you, basically that you've been physically present in these great United States of America for about 30 months if you're doing it from a 5-year period. So 30 months in a 5-year period is about 2.5 years, right? Give or take. So ultimately that's what you want to do. You want to show, and that's done with evidence, and that's what we would provide in the N-400. Furthermore, if you're applying through the U.S. citizenship route of you know, being married to a U.S. citizen and getting the green card that way, then you have that 3-year, not the 5-year. So for 3 years, that whole part of it, you have to make sure that you've been physically present in this great United States of America for about 18 months, which equates out to about 1.5 years of the 3 years. So think about if it's 5 years, you're there for half that 5-year period, which is 2.5 years. If you're doing it through the 3-year route, you're doing it for a 1.5 years. So it's all math, but at the end of the day, it's more about counting it down to the direct day that you have traveled in and out of the country, and ultimately showing to the government, if you did happen to stay 6 months to a year, over why that was the case. Maybe you had some medical conditions. Maybe you know, because of COVID, you couldn't even get flights that were leaving. Maybe there were certain situational factors that ultimately affected your case that we as your attorney would literally talk to these officers about and give them case law, give them the knowledge and the expertise that involves facts of your case with knowledge of the rule of law, and combine that analysis for a positive outcome for you as the immigrant. So that's very important. That's number one, right? So you're going through this continuous residence and physical presence requirement. Now that you kind of understand why that's so important, we're actually going to walk you through a case where we had a client, okay, undisclosed. We had a Jane Doe, right, some client that ultimately applied for citizenship through her husband, who was a U.S. citizen, and tried to ultimately get her green card within the 3-year period, basically meaning that she had her green card for 3 years since she's been married to that U.S. citizen, and ultimately ended up coming to these great United States of America. And it happened to be that her husband happened to be back in the country of India. He was there for business and a little bit of pleasure as well, but that did not ultimately affect her living together with her husband, because he was there for business and work. And that's why she had a lawyer, and that's why we were able to go into that interview and win on appeal. We went to an appeal type of process. And appealing is very interesting because ultimately you go through these N-400 appeals, and it can be very complicated. And you really want a lawyer. It's called an N-336, right? It's a request for a hearing on a decision and naturalization proceedings. So this is based under Section 336 of the INA, the Immigration Nationality Act. This is nothing to y'all. Basically, this is all legalese and all that. We keep it pretty simple here at Triple. Basically, what that means is this. It's that you have an opportunity, if you have ever gotten a rejection or you got denied by the government, talk to a lawyer. A lot of immigrants try to save money, which is understandable. You work very hard for that dollar that you earn, all right, as a green card holder. But at our firm, we really recommend hire a lawyer from the beginning. It's very important if you want to win. This is your life. It's very important. Do not risk it because you want to save a couple $100. That's not what it's about. Ultimately, what it's about is winning, right? Not only on the front end, but on the back end, and having counsel there present to ultimately win your case. So today what we're going to do, now that you kind of understand the law, you understand kind of the policy for informational purposes, you've kind of understood it, we're now going to go into the specific case on how we won. I have the brief pulled up right here in front of me, and we're going to go through how we actually won the case for this specific client and how this might apply to your case. And that's the reason why you're listening right now. You need fierce advocacy at this point from counsel such as ourselves here at Trip Law, and we have attorneys on deck who are ready to work for you, because it is not right that sometimes because of money or circumstances or whatever it may be, and the fact that the government can also mess up like they did in this specific case, they used the wrong law, the wrong statute of the law, all right? And we were able to fix it and get our client citizenship. It was amazing. And in a future video we'll make, we will have that client come on and give a few words about how that process went. So not only do you hear from an attorney, but you hear from the actual client, because a lot of this, when you're listening in, you've already gone through this rejection maybe if you're listening in, or maybe you don't want to get rejected and that's why you're actually tuning in this video. But these are golden nuggets of wisdom and knowledge and legal kind of work that we do that can maybe shape kind of how you're headed in your citizenship application for your loved one or for you. So it's very important that you're already here. And this is a little longer of a video. We're at about 11 minutes or so. But you know what's really interesting is you're still focused on the goal of winning. We at Trip Law here are all about winning. So if you want to win, give us a call at 863-370-2427 or email us at info@trip-law.com so we can analyze your case and understand what's going on and how can we win from a legal strategy perspective. So let's jump right in now, okay? I'm looking at the brief right here in front of me that we drafted, that I personally drafted for this client, who was ultimately an Indian woman. And she happened to be in India during the pandemic, during the COVID-19 and whatnot. And her doctor did not allow her to ultimately travel because she was a geriatric woman. She was a little bit more seasoned, a little bit older than most, and God bless her soul, she was a good person, right? And she could not come here because of her health condition. So we were able to basically explain to the government that due to her health condition, due to her doctor's opinion based on that doctor in India, travel was not something that was recommended after the medical procedure that had taken place. We backed it up with medical x-rays, medical testimony, and all of it. And we were able to show to the U.S. government that someone of that age, it was not a reasonable and articulable thing that you can have someone like this come here. Safety and security of these immigrants, especially those who are legal permanent residents and green card holders trying to get citizenship, is so important. And here at our firm, we also do the I-131 advanced parole. So in case you know you're going to travel, we'll do that for you. But one thing that was very interesting is when we went to the actual N400 interview, her naturalization interview, we were there. That was the first case we had ever lost, technically, but then we won on appeal. And here's why. The officer at USCIS used the wrong law. This can happen. This is why you need an attorney. Because sometimes what will happen is you will do everything right, but people are people. People are human beings. And even officers make mistakes. Our government makes mistakes sometimes. But that's why you hire a lawyer, you hire an advocate, you hire counsel to make sure that your rights are protected, even if you're not a citizen. You may be a legal permanent resident, but you have the same rights. I'm a fierce advocate of it. I'm an immigrant, and I get that. And that's so important. Sometimes the voiceless need to have a voice. And so to be completely honest with you, we saw that, and it was appalling that the government would make such a substantive error in a case. So we made a brief. We filed what is called that request for hearing. It's an N336. You're going to have to file that. But could you imagine filing that after already getting denied? Remember, most of y'all listening in, if you've gotten denied, talk to a lawyer, because sometimes the denial may not be because of you. You may have done a stellar job. It may be because of the government. So just be very careful. Don't just take defeat as the pillar. No, you need to fight. We are advocates. We fight, and it's very important that you fight because you've worked so hard to get into this country and get your green card. and go through those interview processes and do everything you do to just get denied by the N400 process. That's not right. It doesn't settle well with our firm. So we will fiercely advocate. You can already tell I'm passionate about this because it's wrong. It's just flat out wrong. And ultimately, you've worked enough. You've done a lot of good work. So call a lawyer. Call Trip Law at 863-370-2427. But anyways, what happened in this case was this. We basically had an appellate brief that we filed, and it was to that USCIS officer. What we said in this was that the decision based on Miss Jane Doe happened to be that the denial was based on USCIS's law based under Section 316 of the INA. And we wanted to say that, she married a U.S. citizen spouse. So because of that, we attached all the evidence, the passport and all that. It should have actually been dictated with Section 319A of the statute, so the Code of Federal Regulations. So these are legalese type things. These are things you do not have to worry about. You just give us a call, we'll figure it out, right? That's the best thing about this. But they basically used the wrong section of the Immigration Nationality Act. And as a result, what we argued for our client, Ms. Doe, was that ultimately there was a physical presence issue. So earlier on in this video, we talked about continuous residency and physical presence. This wonderful young woman had traveled in and out of America back to India, and what ended up happening was that the 3-year rule applied because she had married a U.S. citizen. So what ended up happening is in those 3 years, she needed 1.5 years of the time here. But the continuous residency and physical presence they took into account. But the physical presence was broken based on this officer's interpretation because they did not know what they were doing. We requested supervisory authority and questioning, and what we ended up doing was we argued that basically that Miss Doe did apply for her N400. We showed that there was a preceding date on the application on such and such date. We showed that she did receive her green card on such and such date. We showed that she had the following travel history, which what that means is we actually broke down the I-94 travel history. We literally had it down to the day. And that's where you really need a lawyer. Because when you look at physical presence and continuous residence, you have to break down the actual by day. And it can get confusing because what happens if you leave America today and you go back to India? And I'm just using India as an example. What if you're a Colombian watching? Or what if you're a South Korean? Or what if you're a Cambodian? What if you're a Canadian? What if you're a Mexican? You all have rights, right? And no matter what country you're from, the principles that I'm teaching you in this video are the same. At the end of all of it, the dates need to match up. And that's what we do as counsel for you. And the reason I'm so fierce and advocacy oriented is this. I've been an immigrant. I've been in your shoes. I know how the cards are stacked against you. Do not let the government dictate your rights. It's your rights that need to be dictated by the government. So one big thing is we actually broke down the days. We actually created a chart for our client, attached it in the brief with the breakdown of the total days they were outside the United States versus the total days they were inside the United States versus what countries they traveled based on the dates from and to where they went. And also, did the trip last longer than 6 months to a year? We never recommend to our clients, and this is not legal advice, it's for informational purposes only, but when you come to our office, we will have that legal advice given to you. It's impeccable how we win cases because the way we win is by following the law, but at the same time, trusting the process, giving you the best ammo in your arsenal to do the best job. So what we did was we also listed, we listed every travel date. And your loved one will have that. So we listed all that. And then what we did was we broke it down in layman's terms. Basically, in simple terms, we broke it down. How many days were they in the country? There's a lot of math involved, right? Luckily, you're speaking with an attorney who has a math history, right? Master's degrees and, all these different areas. But anyways, we won't talk about that. But basically what we want to talk about is this. We're literally looking at you as the immigrant. How did you end up getting the INA to work for you, the Immigration Nationality Act? That's through your lawyer. At the end of the day, you do not need to be in a position where your citizenship is compromised because you either had bad representation through a lawyer who messed up, or you didn't have a lawyer to begin with, or you had a hybrid of both, and then what ended up happening is it didn't work out. This N336 thing, very important. You're going to ultimately have an appeal process. You have substantive due process rights and procedural due process rights based on the United States Constitution. Along with that, you have administrative policy, laws, regulations, and all of it that is going your way. Do not think that you have, just because you got denied on the N400, if you're watching this video, you may have gotten denied, but do not think you can win the appeal. Because here's the thing about appeals. It used to be where USCIS, they're all buddy-buddy, and you would have, you would think like they're all part of the same government, right? But now they've gotten a little better. With respect to the Biden administration, honestly, I think they've done a pretty decent job with respect to immigration as it relates to understanding the procedural aspects of it. So if you got denied by one officer, that officer is going to send that file to another section, and then their supervisory authority is going to review it. What's very interesting is we went to a different officer, and I did that interview over the phone, and we were able to win. And we won, and we still have not lost as of the day of this video, and that's why we're so proud of what we do, because we're fierce advocates. One other thing is we did that analysis. We actually wrote a brief. We will submit that on your behalf, and what we'll do is that N336 will be filed. It's a form that you have to file. But what we'll also do for you is we're also going to provide a brief documenting the evidence, looking at the law. In this specific case with Ms. Jane Doe that I brought up, that was an error from the government, and that's not good. But you may have errors based on maybe something you said during the interview, or maybe there was some travel history that was not provided enough evidence upon. So there's a lot of different issues, right? And that's why it's important to call Trip Law, because we know that. I used to work for the State Department. I used to work in these different government entities. Now I'm on the side of y'all, holding that government accountable. So what's really important about it is you got to do an analysis. And what we did for Ms. Doe was that ultimately we calculated the amount of days. We found out that she had been here about 116 more days in the U.S. than the 548-day requirement as required for the physical presence requirement based on Section 319A of the Immigration Nationality Act. All that basically legal stuff is this. I'm going to keep it simple. We're not that kind of firm or that kind of lawyer that's going to break all that, unless you would like. But ultimately, we'll win for you. Our goal is to get you that citizenship. So if you're listening in today, we know how to do our analyses. We know exactly what's happening in your case file. If you happen to be that person who wanted to save money a little bit and then file it yourself, and then you got denied based on either something you said or based on physical presence and continuous residency requirements and things of that nature, do give us a call. We'd be more than happy to help you. Ultimately, the conclusion of all of that ended up with Miss Doe, my client, and our law firm's client, ultimately getting a W, getting a win. And what ended up happening was we won in accordance with the law, Section 319A of the INA. We were able to win. For y'all listening in who aren't lawyers, who are actually obviously wanting to learn, all that is out of this scope of kind of what you really need to know. All that just means is have trust. We will win for you. We'll do our best to. But we wish you the best of luck with your N400 journey. At the end of it, if you do fail your citizenship exam, call us. We have a proven track record to win. And I think that's actually more important than anything else, is that the fact that you've done this, either through the 5-year self-petition or the 3-year petition through a U.S. citizen spouse. You may be a man listening in with a U.S. citizen wife, or you may be a woman listening in with a U.S. citizen husband, or you may be same-sex, whatever it may be. We are here to help. Our whole goal is to ultimately get you the win, the W. And so what we want to do for you is this. We want to make sure that you know the law. That's number one. You know the policy. That's number two. You understand that you have a lawyer who you can actually get in touch with. A lot of the clients that we get, they can't even talk to their lawyer. We will literally give you our cell phone number. You can text me and we'll talk. That's how we kind of operate around here. But lo and behold, we want to set you up for success. At the end of all of it, you've worked too hard to obtain the American dream, not to ultimately win your citizenship interview, just to be that close and cross the finish line, and because of some officer who may not understand either the law or understand your situation, give you that one, you know. And there's a couple other ways that I could reflect this, but what I'm saying is this: you got this. If you're listening in and you listen in for about 24 minutes by now, you know this is golden nuggets of knowledge. Come to our office, let us help you with your appeal with the N336. And if you are interested in actually applying for citizenship from the beginning and hiring an attorney, it'll be one of the best investments you ever make. And one thing I always tell my clients is this, and it's very simple. If you are dealing with something that involves your life, and that means like your status as an American, or a medical condition that you have that you need a doctor to go through, you kind of got to hire the professionals, right? So you're hiring this lawyer, you're hiring this firm, you're seeing me in this video, you've probably seen other videos, but talk to me personally. Let's build a positive relationship, because at the end of all of it, you are going to go through a lot of hell and back, right? Like, you're going to deal with people who do not want you here based on the government. They're trying to keep you out. We're trying to keep you in, because we know, we understand how much you have to offer to these great United States of America. And that's what this country was built on. And so, honestly, when you're ready, give us a call. We're ready to be here for you. Once again, this is U.S. Immigration Attorney Hardam Tripathi from Trip Law. Number here is 1-863-370-2427. Email is info@trip-law.com. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your character and the fact that you're trying to become a U.S. citizen. And we just appreciate you liking and subscribing on this channel so we can continue the effort to educate and furthermore give hope to people who are in the same shoes as you, in the same shoes I was about 32 years ago when I immigrated to this country. So just really appreciate y'all's time, and I look forward to getting your call and answering any questions you have. I wish you the best with your immigration journey. I wish you the best with your N400, and I hope you never have to go through an appeal, but if you do, I hope you give us a call, and I wish you the best with that appeal as well. So thank you very much for your time. God bless you. God bless these great United States of America. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Hardam Tripathi from Trip Law, and we wish you the best. Have a great rest of your day.